thank you everyone for joining again for this Money Talk Tuesday, this one being on the veterans bonuses and resources amid COVID-19. My name is Nick Clark. I'm with the Office of Economic Empowerment and the Veterans Bonus Division. Today we're joined by the Financial Planners Association of Massachusetts, as well as the manager of the Veterans Bonus Division. And I'll let the presenters introduce themselves as we get into that. So first things first, this is a Zoom webinar and will be recorded. The recording may be uploaded onto a public website for future use. Any information shared through the questions function will be anonymous. Please note, however, that the chat record is subject to public records law and as such is not anonymous. We're also planning to live stream this Zoom webinar on Facebook. We've had some technical difficulties this morning, so bear with us if you don't see it at the moment, but you can find us on Facebook at Veterans Bonus. So check that out. We have great content and we like to share great content. So next up, so just some rules of engagement real quickly. Everyone attending the webinar will be muted, but we do want this to have a general dialogue going on. So feel free to type any questions or comments using the chat function or in the Q&A section. You'll see that at the bottom of the screen. So please feel free to ask any questions you have along the content, and I'll be monitoring these so that I will answer them in the text box itself or bring them to the attention of the presenter. On the next slides, thank you. So again, there's some contact information for the Veterans Bonus Division. You'll see the presenters on the left-hand side. They'll introduce themselves as they go. So next, I'll just go over the agenda real quickly. So first, we'll talk about the Veterans Bonus Program. What are the bonuses available? What does the eligibility criteria look like? And then we'll get into the application process and actually go over a real-time application so that you can get familiarized with the most up-to-date standards that we use. And then we'll get into the CARES Act and additional resources to understand what is there for you from the CARES Act during this time with COVID-19. So Steve, if you want to take it from here. Oh, you're muted, and I think your mic's off, Steve.
Sorry about that. Let me go back here. So what I was saying is thanks, Nick, and I'd like to thank OEE and yourself and the financial planners for joining us today with this webinar. I always like to start my presentations with telling people what the Veterans Bonus is because it's a unique program and only a few states have it. So what the Veterans Bonus is, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts awards a wartime bonus to service members who lived in Massachusetts before entering the military and served during a designated war or conflict period. All the bonus, they have the same similar requirements. You have to live in Massachusetts for at least 6 months before entering the military, served or serving honorably. And for the GWAP bonus, if somebody was discharged under other than honorable, if they can show they served honorably at a certain time frame, they may be eligible for the bonus. And lastly, they have to serve active service during the eligibility time periods. Here's a history. The bonus program goes all the way back over 100 years. The first state law was enacted in 1919 for the World War I bonus. And then there was a state law passed for each of the major wars and conflicts during that time period. I want to focus mainly on the Global War on Terrorism bonus, the GWAP bonus, because that's the bonus where most people are eligible for. The bonus was started in 2006. That's when the law was passed. Initially, it was either $1,000 if the service member was in Iraq or Afghanistan, and if they weren't in Iraq, Afghanistan, they served at least 6 months, they'd be eligible for the $500. In 2010, the law was amended to allow awarding multiple bonuses. So if a member was in Iraq or Afghanistan one time and then deployed later on, they were eligible for $500 for each deployment. Or if they deployed to other locations, they would be awarded $250 per deployment. 2017, we wanted to keep the bonus relevant, so we updated the names of the operations because the law reflected some of the older operations. And we also extended the higher bonus to all DoD imminent danger locations because we know the global war on terrorism spread more than Iraq and Afghanistan at that time. And then the latest update to the law was in 2018 when they passed the BRAVE Act. We amended our law to award $1,000 plus any unpaid bonuses to the primary Gold Star family member. A Gold Star family member is a family that lost a loved one while on active duty. Here's what the bonus looks like today. Initial bonus, $500 for 6 months or more active service, $1,000 for the first imminent danger location, $500 if they go to another imminent danger location, and $250 per non-imminent locations, which would be Kuwait, Qatar, those type of places. So if somebody served 4 years and didn't deploy at all, they're eligible for at least a $500 bonus. And we also have the Brave Act bonus, which is for the Gold Star families. And if anybody knows any Gold Star families, please tell them about this bonus. All right, here are some of the older bonuses that we have. Vietnam, Korea, World War II. Most of the veterans receive the bonus for these bonuses, but we check. So if we get an inquiry, we get an application, we check to see if the veteran first received the bonus. If they haven't, then we'll process the application. One other note I want to make on this is for the Vietnam conflict bonus. Initially, it ended in 1972, but then in 2010, the law was extended to 1975. So we're finding a lot of Vietnam veterans that entered after 1972 did not receive the bonus. So if you know anybody that entered the military after 1972 and before 1975, please let them know to check to see if they're eligible for a bonus. Our application process, it was pretty much the same since the beginning. However, we have changed it now that we have it online. And still 3 basic points on this is you need to complete the application. They complete it when they're discharged or while they're on active service. You complete it online or the paper copy. Currently, it's preferred online, but if somebody submits a paper copy at this time, we still have access to get it. It just takes a little longer. We also need the service member to provide documentation showing that they lived in Massachusetts before entering the military, if available. And the documents we accept is high school diplomas, W-2, excise tax, something showing the name, address, and dated prior to them entering the military. So we can determine if they were a resident of Massachusetts. If the service member doesn't have the documentation, our office can do an address history research. And we can also contact the city and town clerk to see if the veteran was registered to vote or on the census. Also, we require the discharge papers if the member was discharged or if they're currently serving. We require to see the military documents showing when they entered and make sure they're currently serving honorably. Then you can submit online, by mail, or in person. But right now, as I said, it's recommended online because we are working remotely. We also have a bonus for deceased veterans. So if a veteran served during one of the wartime periods and passed away after they left the military and they did not receive a bonus, the family is eligible for the bonus. And also if they were killed while on active duty and did not receive the bonus, the family is still eligible for the bonus. And basic requirements: application, death certificate, discharge or casualty report. And if the relationship is not listed on the death certificate, then we would require some other documentation. We also have an appeal process. So whenever a claim or application is denied, we notify the applicant and we provide the appeal process. And what that is they notify the Veterans Bonus Division, then we would notify the appeal board, which is comprised of designees from the Treasury, Attorney General Office, and Adjutant General's Office. And they would schedule a hearing, have a hearing, and all the final decisions for the appeal boards are posted on our website. Here are some numbers from what we did in 2019. We've awarded over $1 million for the GWAP bonus. Uh, the blue is the imminent danger. That's a higher amount, so that's why it's a little more than the others. And here's a view of our 2019 older war bonuses. The orange and blue, that's the Vietnam bonus. So we've awarded about $15,000 in Vietnam bonuses last year, pretty significant. We've also awarded some Korean War bonuses, and looks like there was one World War II bonus. So we still offer that bonus. However, like I said, most of the older veterans receive the bonus at their discharge. We can research that if they're not sure. All right, this slide shows how people found out about the bonus. The number one reason was family or friends. So with that being said, after this briefing, it may not apply to you, but you may know other people that are eligible. Please pass this information on. You can just tell them, hey, do you know the state offers a bonus for veterans, and they can Google it. Let's see, we also, the veteran service officers, that's every city and town has a VSO. They are also, they also help us out with the bonus when the veterans go see them. All right, now I'm going to take you to our website. Here's our website. The website is www.vetsbonusma.com. That'll bring you to the mass.gov website. And you can see our actions. Now, one thing I do want to show you is this Veterans Bonus Inquiry. If people want to find out if they received a bonus or eligible for a bonus, they can submit an inquiry, and we return them within 5 days. So let me just show you what the inquiry looks like. Here's an inquiry. We don't ask too much information: name, email address, which is preferred at this time, and service dates in case there's more than one person with the same name. Now I'd like to go over the online form. It's pretty basic, at least I think so, but you can be the judge of that. First page is the contact information. Then we ask for the service information. And then assignment and deployment information. The last page is where they can upload the supporting documents, and it could be PDFs, it could be pictures. So just upload the supporting documents here and submit. When you submit it, we receive it, and you get a confirmation number. Now I'll turn it over to the financial planners, and they can discuss some other financial resources.
John Harrington, with David Santoro. We're with the Financial Planning Association of Massachusetts, and we provide pro bono financial counseling for all veterans and service members in Massachusetts. And we're invited today to talk briefly about the CARES Act and some of the provisions in that and what they might mean for just generally individuals in Massachusetts, but also some specific things that apply only to veterans. I think, Dave, you're going to get us rolling on that.
Sure. As many people are probably aware, the CARES Act was signed into law at the end of March. 2.2 trillion in economic relief, 17.2 billion given to the VA to help hire new staff and expand resources. Some of the things that came about that was that home loan servicers basically put loans into forbearance. People are having trouble paying their mortgages. So foreclosures and evictions have been pushed out. The VA has allowed some telecommunication companies to deliver, telehealth, so mental health services. They waived the requirement that state homes, the VA state homes, maintain 90% occupancy to get their federal funding, and the VA state homes permitted to admit more spouses and Gold Star parents. Next slide, please. So just we did some questions and answers here on the CARE Act and about the stimulus check and how much it will be. Here's some facts about the stimulus check. A lot of people probably already have theirs in their bank accounts. I know my daughter received hers not too long ago, so most people probably have gotten them if they're going to get them. Now, if for some reason you have not filed taxes in the last couple of years, you can go on to the IRS website and you can put your information in so that you will get your stimulus check. Next slide, please.
Dave, can I just make a note on that slide?
Please.
So those, the AGI less thans, that's the start of the phase out range. So if you have your adjusted gross income, which is you can look at your tax return. They're basing it off of your 2018 tax return or your 2019 if you've already filed it. But for those who haven't filed, they'll base it off the 2018. Those ranges start at 75,000, and then your stimulus amount would be completely phased out. For an individual, it's 99,000. For a married couple, it's 198,000. So it's not like a clear line where if you make $1 over 75,000, you're not getting a stimulus. And for anyone that has children, those phase out ranges are extended because you get an extra $500 per child that's under the age of 17. Just from my perspective, I help clients do their tax returns, and I'm seeing about 50% of them have received the stimulus checks that are eligible for them, and the others who haven't are able to go, like David mentioned, onto the IRS website and provide their direct deposit information to get the stimulus payments. There's also a provision that VA recipients that have not filed a tax return, like if you're getting a VA benefit, disability, or retirement, you can go on to the IRS website and fill in specific information about your circumstances, which will allow you to get the stimulus. And that's especially important if you have a child and they may not be aware of that. So you can get that extra $500.
Thanks, John.
Sure.
So some of this kind of addresses the question we already talked about, was if you're retired and no longer working, yes, you'll get the check. And if you haven't filed, we've talked about the fact that you can go on and the IRS website. Also, one of the things under the CARE Act is if you're taking RMDs, which will require minimum distributions from your IRA or other retirement account, this year you're not required to. They have suspended those. And this also kind of ties in, you may have heard of the Secure Act that came out where it pushed that date to the age to 72. So most people now are not going to have to worry about taking their RMDs until they're 72, unless they, like I said, were at 70 and a half. Next slide. If you are running, go ahead. Okay. Do you want to say something, John?
No, I didn't.
Okay. If you are running into problems, affording things, and you need to access your retirement accounts, which I can tell you, and John and I would both probably tell you, are the last thing you want to do. But if you have a situation where you have to access some of that money, the penalty has been waived. There used to be a 10% penalty when you accessed your retirement accounts early, before 59 and a half. So that penalty has been waived if there's a reason, a COVID, reason for COVID that you diagnosed, or you have negative financial consequences like a job loss or something like that. And also the borrowing limit on 401ks, 403bs, any of those like 457s, such like that, those tax qualified retirement plans through an employer, those have been increased from, typically it was $50,000 to $180,000, but only for the 6 months after the bill's enactment, so from March to September.
David, if I can just add something. If you do take money out of your 401k or IRA penalty free, you are able to put it back in. I think within the next 3 years, there's the ability to put it back into the IRA or 401k. So that can help you preserve retirement assets if you need it now, but are able to put it back later. That can help you. And the tax you'd be able to recoup the tax if you're assessed a tax for a distribution.
Okay. Yep, that's correct. Yeah, you can spread, I wasn't sure you could put it back in 3 years, but I know you can spread the tax over 3 years if you did have to pay that tax. So that's a good thing too. Next slide. I think we probably all are aware of this, that the filing taxes has been pushed out to July 15th, as well as paying our taxes. And the state has gone along with that too. So in the state of Massachusetts and the federal, both your tax filing dates have now been pushed out, as well as the time to pay your taxes. Also, they've added that you can get an above the line $300 deduction for certain charitable contributions that you make in 2020 tax year. So not your current taxes that you'd be filing, but next year's taxes that you'd be filing. Typically, those have been put into your itemized deductions. So if you were taking the standard deduction, you weren't able to itemize, then you would lose that. But now a lot of people have been giving to certain charities to help, a lot of the first responders and things like that. So they've given you that $300 up front that you'll be able to take. Next slide. Student loans. It's a great thing on student loans. They basically put them all in forbearance right now. It's been automatic, and the interest is not accruing. But if you are able to pay them, you can still pay your student loans if you choose to, and you'd be best paying down on principal. So depending on your financial situation, it might be an advantage if you're still able to do that, to pay them down and accelerate them. But like I said, anybody that can't afford them, they've been put in forbearance for at least for I think prior, yeah, so till
6 months.
6 months, thank you. And also mortgage and rent. We talked about that a little bit earlier, but that's been pushed out. Individuals can't be evicted if they're having trouble paying their rent. I would recommend that you work with your landlord if you are paying rent, and try to figure something out, because a lot of your landlords probably have mortgages to pay too, and they've been have the advantage of not having to pay it, but eventually they're going to have to catch up. So so those are the sort of things that it's good that nobody can be foreclosed on, and nobody can get evicted right now. But I'm sure at some point we're going to have to catch up on those. So after the 6 months is over, you'll have to figure out how that works out.
And that includes VA loans, David. So if you have a VA loan and you want to stop making payments for up to 6 months, just contact your mortgage servicer and request that forbearance. And from what I'm hearing is that they're basically just going to tack the 6 months on to the end of the loan. So you're extending your period, but you have 6 months of not having to make the mortgage payment, which, if that is something that helps you, can really be significant.
Yeah. And the thing on the student loans is it's automatic for the federal loans. If you have other student loans, you may need to reach out to whoever. If you've refinanced, you may need to reach out to those folks to see if you can get those put in forbearance too. Anything else, John, for me? Okay. Next slide, please. This is one thing that's been good for anybody that's been unemployed, is they've given an additional $600 per week in unemployment through the end of July. So that's been really helpful for folks, because if you are unemployed, obviously you've lost your income, but your unemployment may not make up for what you were earning. So this extra $600 is going to be helpful. The only thing to remember, though, is it is taxable. So it is income and it will be taxed. I had a client that was actually, they were taking the taxes out. So she's like, I wasn't getting my full $600. And I'm like, yeah, that's because they were, taking the taxes out because she had set it up that way. And then some of the small business loans that were rolled out, the PPP and the EIDL loans, I know they just rolled a second bunch out this week. Most of them, you have to go to your local bank who's an SBA approved lender. And I can tell you most banks are swamped right now. They have got more people applying for loans than they can get through. And a lot of that money is running out and running out quickly. I know the first set ran out pretty fast. I know there was a lot of information out there about larger companies getting it when they probably shouldn't have. A number of them have been giving it back. It is obviously for the small businesses. But the thing with the Paycheck Protection Program is it tends to go by employee. So I believe that was about $10,000, but what it equates to is about $1,000 per employee. So some people are applying for it, some people aren't because of the size of their companies. Next slide. That's pretty much what we have right now. Are there any questions out there that we can answer?
Yeah, there was a question about the interaction between the stimulus checks and child support arrears. I don't know if the answer to that question. It's something I would have to look up and get back to the person that asked it. I'm not sure if you know that offhand.
I don't know that offhand.
We also have a couple poll questions that we'd like to send out just to get some more interaction from the audience. If we could send those out now, we have 4, and we also have another question. Steve, this can be more up your alley. So the question is, I have a veteran who was discharged with a general under honorable and did not deploy. He served post 9/11. How can he show he had honorable service prior to discharge to qualify for a bonus?
Good question. So general under honorable, that the DD 214 with that general under honorable, they're eligible for the $500 bonus. If they had other than honorable, what we look at is sometimes in the remarks section, the DD 214 shows honorable dates. We can also look at other factors, maybe good conduct medals, some of the medals that they received, or perhaps some evaluations or decorations. So yeah, definitely assist that veteran with applying, and we can work directly with the veteran.
Great. We also just got another question similar in the chat, Steve. They said, I joined a little late, or talking about the chat, but is this bonus only for those who have been deployed? I was discharged but not deployed.
Great, thanks. So the requirement is you have to live in Massachusetts before going in the military and served after 9/11/2001. If you just have 6 months stateside, you're still eligible for the $500. So if you have 6 months active service, you should be eligible for the $500 if you lived in Massachusetts before entering the military, or if you reserve a guard before being activated.
Great. So if there's any other questions, feel free to ask them. We have the results of the first poll. So have you applied and received your welcome home bonus was the question. Yes, an astounding 62% said yes, which is great. 24% they said they don't think they're eligible. And like Steve mentioned in the walkthrough of the application, we have an inquiry tab on our website that will link out. I believe it was sent through the chat, and we'll also send it in our follow-up email so that you can use that, plug in your information, and we'll search to see if you've already received your bonus and if you're eligible for a bonus. So we do have a few more polls that we could send out if everyone wants to stick around and answer those. They're very quick. So we have a new poll going out. Roughly how many veterans do you serve in your community? And this is obviously gauged towards organizations or individuals who serve veterans. Oh, and in the chat, a question was just asked for Dave and Jonathan. How would someone get assistance with financial planning from either of you or your services?
They can go out to the Mass FPA website, and they should be able to contact someone there, or they could send an email. I think, did you include my information? They can send an email direct to me, and then I can push it out to our pro bono group.
Dave, I'll add the email in the chat, admin@fpama.org.
Okay.
That's basically for any financial related matters that you have questions about, retirement planning, budgeting, investing, anything that relates to money.
So another question that just came up in the chat. I heard the stimulus payment is an advanced tax credit. What does that mean?
So what that means is that it's going to be reconciled on the 2020 return. So if for some reason you don't get the stimulus, you will be able to, on your 2020 tax return, they'll do the calculation for how much you would have received based off of your 2020. I think it's going to be your 2020 adjusted gross income, and then you would get the payment then. Now, if what you received today or in 2020 exceeds what you should have based on your 2020 AGI, there's no clawback. So that's a good thing. So like if your income goes up, then, or you lose a dependent over the age of 17 and your calculated stimulus is less than what you received, they're not going to take it back. But if you've had an additional dependent or your income goes down, then you may get additional funds.
Great. Another question in the chat, Steve. This is for you again. So did the imminent danger include the Pentagon and the Twin Towers on 9/11 2001?
That's a great question. That is not on the imminent danger list. However, if that was considered a hostile fire area, that could definitely be, we could discuss that.
And to add on that, stateside active service could count towards the 6 months of service bonus as well, starting on 9/11. So if there's any more questions, feel free to put them out now. We'll have another poll go out real quickly. So if you stick around and answer that. How many veterans-centered events are hosted in your community yearly? And we just got a question, can you share the imminent danger list? Absolutely. We plan to send that out in our follow-up email. And you can search for it online. It's the Department of Defense imminent danger pay listing area. It's updated yearly and it's all online, but we will send that out. And Steve, here's another question that just came up. So I have a Gold Star spouse whose husband was KIA, and they were in the process of moving to Massachusetts. Actually, they were in the process of moving when he got deployed. She moved here anyway. He never made it home. Does she qualify for the Gold Star spouse bonus?
We'd have to take a look at that. The requirement really is that the member had to live in Massachusetts before entering the military, but we can definitely take a look at it to see what the situation is.
And another great question, is there a limit to the number of bonuses a veteran can receive for additional deployments?
Great question. There's no limits, and the bonuses are not taxed.
Great. I'm curious if we have the poll results yet. So we do. So, oh, that's great news. Many communities have well over 5 events, over half. That's great. 5 or less, and 3. It's good to see that no communities have 0. That's positive. I know the Veterans Bonus Division, we try to be present at a lot of these events to spread the word about the bonuses and help answer questions and inquiries at these events. So I think we have one more question, one more poll question that we can go out. So as far as you know, have veterans in your community been adversely affected financially by COVID-19?
Nick, one other thing I wanted to mention, as you saw in the briefing, that the bonuses changed quite a bit throughout the years. So if somebody received a bonus in the before 2010, there's a good possibility they may be eligible for additional bonuses. So I definitely recommend to submit an inquiry to see if you're eligible for additional bonuses.
Yeah, that's a great point. The inquiry, and we'll send that link out again in a follow-up email, as well as all the other resources that we're referencing. So the results of this poll, 61%, as far as I know, veterans in my community have been adversely affected financially by COVID-19. Around 18%, as far as I know, veterans in their community have not been adversely affected, but expect this to change. So this is a fluid situation, obviously, and a lot of people are affected. But there are resources for you to reach out for here. I mean, if you have any questions, again, we have 2 financial planners here ready and eager to answer questions. So feel free to keep any comments going in the chat, questions there, or in the Q&A section. And the Q&As that you saw pertaining to the CARES Act will be in a PDF that we'll send out. That was drafted by David and his colleagues. So another question, is there a requirement to submit all DD-214s? And what happens when a multi-deployed reservist or guard member last discharge is not honorable, but all the previous ones were?
Yes, we need all discharges for the bonuses. If the last discharge was not honorable and the previous ones were, then they're definitely still eligible for all the previous activations that they had. And the last discharge, if they can show they served honorably during a time period prior to being dishonorable service, then they may be eligible for a bonus for that as well.
And on that, I think it's important to stress that it is a case-by-case basis, really. There's an individual approach taken to each application because everyone's circumstances are unique. So if there's not any more questions, I think the next slide just covers some of the resources that we're going to send out. Yeah, so this, among others, we have a great reference guide for all the bonuses that gives a detailed explanation of each one and the eligibility criteria that you can have on hand, easy to use, as well as some more information. We'll have that CARES Act Q&A that you can have. It's really handy to have, like what David and Jonathan were talking about, as well as some more information on a really helpful VA press release that talks about how the CARES Act is affecting and supporting a lot of the VA's needs and how that trickles down to the state level veteran services. So I think that about wraps it up. So thank you all again for attending. Thank you for your questions and your chats. And thank you, David and Jonathan, for joining us and sharing this great information. And thank you, Steve. If there's any final questions, feel free to type them, or you'll have our contact information when we send out a follow-up email. So you can reach out to us on a one-on-one basis, as well as access our websites.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining, and thanks for Nick and the team for putting this together, and also Dave and Jonathan for joining us. Looks like we may have another question, Nick.
Oh, this is a good question. Yes. If a female veteran changed her name, does she need to show proof of name change when applying for the bonus?
Great question. If you have it, yes, we would like to see it. If you don't have the documentation, then we can research it on our end. But if you have a document showing a name change, it helps us out. But like I said, if you don't have it, don't let that prevent you from applying. We have resources to research that.
Great. So thank you all again. Really appreciate your questions. If there's anything left, any final comments anyone has? If not, we'll wrap this up.
Nick, looks like there's one more question.
Yep. Looks like someone asking to be added to the email list. Absolutely. We'll include you. We'll send that out. And feel free to share those resources as well with any of your colleagues. Great. I figure we'll stick around for a minute or two to see if there's any further questions trickling in. All right. So you all receive an email again. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for presenting, everyone who presented.
Thanks again, everyone.